Bob, for the benefit of our viewers, someone out there that doesn't know who you are, tell us who you are. Give us your credentials and where you've worked.
Well, I'm a physicist and a scientist. I've worked at various government institutions, one of them being Los Alamos National Labs in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And also, I'm more prominently known for working at Area S4, which is about 15 miles south of Area 51 in the Nevada desert, which is a top secret government research facility.
Where did you go to school, Bob?
I went to school at MIT and Caltech, also a couple other junior colleges here and there in California.
And what was your field of study?
Field of study was physics and electronics technology.
And when you were working for these different installations before you went to S4, you didn't have any connection with flying saucers whatsoever, did you?
No, I didn't have any connection. And in fact, I didn't even believe in them. I thought it was just, the rantings and ramblings of crazy people, more or less.
When was the first time that you actually began to believe or got interested in the subject enough to want to go someplace and maybe work with them?
Well, I was never interested in the subject at all, primarily because I didn't believe in it. It's when I was offered a job. Working on advanced propulsion systems is how it was advertised to me. And it was only later that I found out the job I was employed to do was to back engineer extraterrestrial craft, or an extraterrestrial craft. And it really happened backwards from the normal chain of events.
How did you come to get the job at the S4 area?
Well, that's a good question. And I really don't know if I can answer it. I don't know what motivated them. There are certainly more intelligent, more educated people around. There is a wide variety of high-profile scientists and physicists that they could have pulled out of the works anywhere. If anything, your guess is as good as mine on that. I really don't know why I was chosen. I did have not really connections per se, but I did know a couple people that were also involved in the project. I really didn't know they were at the time, but they could have put a name in, and could have wound up that way.
You think that Dr. Teller might have had anything to do with it?
It's a substantial possibility. At one time, while I was working at Los Alamos, I went to see one of his lectures. I got there early, and he was outside, and coincidentally, at that particular time, I was on the front page of the newspaper he was reading, and he was reading about an article about a small Honda Civic that I had converted to run on jet power. And I introduced myself and explained what I was doing, and some years later, I had sent a resume to him and some other national labs when I decided to get back into the scientific field after I had moved to Las Vegas. And it is substantially possible that he had a hand in doing it. He did refer me to someone at EG&G, which in turn did lead to the employment at S4.
When did you actually see the first vehicle or ship or craft that you knew for sure wasn't of this manufacturer on this planet?
Well, I did see it probably the second or third time I went out to the facility. And at that time, I wasn't convinced that's what the craft was. When I first saw it, I thought that this was a U.S.-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sightings. It was only later to find out that that wasn't the case when I started receiving some documentation on the craft and actually got to go in it and found out what the scope of the project was. But I had seen it earlier on, but really didn't know what I was looking at.
And what was the scope of the project? What were you supposed to do to this craft?
Well, the scope of the group there, the people at S4, were to back engineer, essentially take apart and discover the manufacturing process and materials used to produce this craft, this flying saucer. More specifically, my group consisted of me and another person, his name was Barry, that we dealt with the power and propulsion system of the craft, and we were to back engineer that. We were to see if the power and propulsion system could be duplicated, and if it could possibly be duplicated with earthly materials instead of any exotic foreign materials that we might have come across.
When you saw that craft and you realized it was an alien craft, did that upset you in any way, that knowing that here was a vehicle from another system sitting right here on the planet Earth, and of course always believing that there was no such thing, it was hallucinations and so forth? What was your feeling inside when you were confronted with the reality that all that you had believed before was gone now, and you had to take a whole new look at things?
Well, actually, that's a good question. A lot of people have said, boy, that must have been exciting, and that really wasn't the case. The feeling really came over me when I was permitted in the craft to see the placement of the subsystems that we were going to be working on. And it was not a feeling of excitement at all. It was a very ominous feeling, a feeling, like I've said before, that you shouldn't be there. It's very hard to relay, but it was a real overwhelming, odd feeling that I had. Without trying to use a pun, it was a very unearthly atmosphere, and as it should be, because none of the materials were familiar, none of the architecture of the device was familiar, and it was very odd.
Yeah, because obviously they were here and we weren't there, so being a scientist, you would know the ramifications of such a situation. Which brings me to this question: how far in the future do you estimate that craft was to what we're doing at the present time?
Well, I've heard other people estimate things like that, saying, well, it's 1,000 or 10,000 years in advanced of our technology, and I don't really find that to be the case. All I really find to be the case is probably a technology that's about 100 or 200 years in advance of us, and the only reason being is because they stumbled upon a device, a machine that can actually make gravity, that can produce gravitational waves. Now, this is something that our science and physics knows. We know what gravity is, we know how it works, but we really just observe it. We don't understand it, and we certainly don't have a machine that can create a gravitational wave. And because they've developed this, they have a unique propulsion system, and that has a lot of offshoot possibilities and other uses. Also, the power source is fairly unique. We know of its existence. There is a total annihilation reaction we know of. The 3 atomic reactions we know of are fission, as you see in an atomic bomb, fusion, as you see in a hydrogen bomb, and we're currently trying to make a fusion reactor to provide power cleanly. And we also know there's a total annihilation reaction, which is a extremely, virtually 100% efficient reaction that we're really haven't even begun to do any research with, but here are these systems in place operating, and it really didn't look that far in advance of what we were.
Well, one interesting thing, that reactor that powered this vehicle was very small in relationship to the power it produced, was it not?
Oh, it was tremendously tiny. You're looking at something that puts out more power than an average nuclear power plant, and if anyone lives near one of those, you know how big those things are, and we're looking at something, scarcely bigger than a basketball that's doing this.
Incredible. Do you think that these beings pose any threat to the human race?
I don't think so, and again, that's speculation. I really wouldn't know anything about that, but if the intent was to do harm, from all indications, it seems like, the Earth has been visited for thousands of years. And if there was any intent to do harm, it would have already been done. If anything, now this is just my personal speculation, I think we're more of a Disneyland, an interesting thing to observe, but I don't believe there's any real direct interaction. There may be, but I don't see any evidence of it.
Why doesn't the government just come clean on all of this? Because there's so much speculation on it, there's so much disinformation out there. Why don't they just come forward and say, this is what's going on, they don't pose any threat, and it's just something you're just going to have to live up to, people?
Well, it's difficult to do that. First of all, if they were going to come completely clean, they're going to have to admit that as far back as 50 years ago, they knew this was going on. And in the meantime, they've been spreading disinformation and lies about events that have occurred. So they're not going to go and say, we've been lying to you for 50 years. So to start with, there's a problem there. Even if they started today and said, well, we found out a couple things, and here's what we found out. Because these systems are advanced and they pose a real unique function, they present a substantial weapon potential. And because of that, all the information is certainly not going to be released. However, I've always wondered why at least the existence of the craft, at least a statement to the effect of, we have found some material, we have some information, a lot of it pertains to national security. However, we can verify the existence of life elsewhere other than Earth and technology that we have, and perhaps release a little bit of information here, but they're not even doing that. And on that note, there might be several reasons that we haven't thought of. A lot. Who knows what beliefs that it might interfere with? It's a scary thought. We've pretty much put ourselves in the center of the entire universe, that we're the most superior race, and it might upset people to find out that we're really not that significant.
Well, with that thought in mind, do you think perhaps maybe that the aliens themselves may be saying, look, it's better if you just kind of keep it quiet and let us just go on about observing your little Disneyland? And you think that might be part of it too?
It could certainly be part of it. It could be the architecture of the whole plan might have been laid down by them. Who knows what kind of communication, if any, that we've had. But, again, your guess is as good as mine on that.
How many different types of the craft did you see? Just one, or were there other styles?
Well, there was one craft that I worked on. That craft was a very sleek, thin-looking craft compared to the other ones that were there. There were nine craft. I nicknamed this one the Sport model because it was a very sleek-looking 50s-style flying saucer-looking thing, and the name pretty much stuck, and people were using that name. I really don't know much about the other crafts other than the fact that whether it was accidentally or just a coincidence that I happened to see them one time. All the hangar doors were open at one particular time when I was there, and normally they were closed. But for the most part, the only information I have is on the craft that I particularly worked on.
So you don't have any idea whether the other craft came from different systems or they were all from the same system? You have no idea about that?
Well, I do know for a fact that the power and propulsion system in all the crafts were the same. Oh. So that either says, now you have to start speculating that, number one, they either all come from the same manufacturer, or number two, someone is subbing out parts. And, your mind can run away on this somewhere, because you see, obviously, a vehicle like this is produced. Well, there must be a factory somewhere, and, eventually, your mind just runs off with you, and you have to draw a line somewhere.
Of course. It may be today that we will buy the reactor and the system and the components from this big galactic company that has the exclusive on it. Maybe there's some sort of a patent on this thing. Right?
It's possible, but to me, it's so hard to believe, and I know that's strange coming from me, but I kind of draw a line between the actual alien existence and a social structure, and I think that's to keep my sanity, and I pretty much only deal with the stuff that I know for fact and had hands-on experience with, because your mind can really run away with you, and who knows what's going on. You'll find yourself standing outside staring at the sky wondering why no one's going to talk to you. And so to keep my sanity, I just deal with what I actually know to be fact, and try not to speculate too much.
Getting back to that, did you actually see the craft that you worked on fly or operate?
Yeah, I did. On one occasion close up, and on several occasions from about 10 miles away. On the one particular occasion, there was a test flight going on. They came and got me to witness a short duration flight, and I stood at the door of the hangar, and the craft lifted off the ground, which was an amazing sight in itself, something about 52 feet in diameter, virtually silently lift off the ground and just move around a bit and set back down. But that was the close range operation I got to saw.
Can humans duplicate that vehicle?
At the time I was there, that was not even in the realm of possibility.
How about, are they able to fly them?
Well,
Would they be able to fly them?
Well, there was a test pilot flying the craft, so apparently we had developed the expertise, at least to lift the thing off the ground and move it around. As far as taking it any great distance or taking it out of the atmosphere, it's something I don't think would happen. This is, a prized possession, an operating extraterrestrial craft, and things change when you leave the atmosphere. Things like the fact there's no air outside, the fact that there's not exactly 100% chance you can bring it back now. So I don't think they're flying around to Jupiter and taking looks at planets. I think they're very careful with it. They're just testing it, and and will remain that way for an extremely long time.
It would seem like the government would really be just all the stops would be pulled out to try to duplicate this, because this seems to me like the ultimate vehicle to move around, especially in our own solar system.
Well, yeah, you hit on 2 points there. It is the ultimate vehicle to move around, and imagine being able to go anywhere instantaneously. Now, without any weapon potential at all, consider that being a weapon potential. We have trouble in the Middle East. You know how long it takes us to get aircraft carriers out there? Well, we'll be out there in a couple of weeks. I mean, it takes lots of planes refueling. If we could be out there in the snap of a finger and load something up like this with tanks and weapons, that's or behind enemy lines instead of advancing in front of them. I mean, this is a tremendous weapon. And it's because of that, I think, where we see a lot of the secrecy stemming from. So they're kind of torn between pulling out all the stops to move ahead on development and putting all the stops in to stop anyone from finding out what's going on. So they're really between a rock and a hard place.
That's exactly how fast is it?
Well, it can...
Don needs to ask it.
What was that?
Then just exactly how fast is the craft?
Do you know how fast this craft might fly?
Well, it's because of the way that the craft operates. It's kind of the question really doesn't make sense, because it's a gravitational propelled device. And we know gravity bends time and bends space, distorts time and distorts space. When you move in a linear mode, you travel x distance in so much time, which is what determines your velocity. However, if you're distorting time and distorting the distance, the equation no longer makes sense. It's nonsense. So essentially, because of the gravitational propulsion of the device, you can move at tremendous distances almost instantaneously.
Did you ever figure out, or did they tell you where this craft came from what system or whereabouts?
Well, there was documentation that they had, but it was something that I couldn't verify. I knew what I was working on because I got to analyze it and develop theories about it. But as far as information from other people, I don't know if the information's correct, but I assume most of it was. If in fact it was, they claim that the craft came from the Zeta Reticuli star system. It's a star system called the Net, I believe, that's visible only in the southern hemisphere, so don't bother looking at it if you're in the United States. But it's about 32 light years away, which is a tremendous distance, considering that even if you were moving at the speed of light, it would take you 32 years to get there and 32 years to get back, which of course a speed we can't even attain now.
Of course, this craft obviously gets back and forth faster than that.
Well, it must, and because of the assumption that number one, it's small. Number two, there's no stores for anything such as food. It doesn't appear to be any waste area. It doesn't appear to hold any cargo. So wherever it came from there really fast. That's why another reason I called it the sport model. It has no luggage space.
Kind of like a dragster.
Exactly.
Got no trunk, it's got no bathroom.
Right.
Got no
It's got one specific function to get from one place to the other as fast as possible, and that's what this looked like it did.
Sounds good. When were you taking off this project, or did you just quit the project, or did the project get completed?
Now we're into a long story. I never specifically quit. A problem formed, and I don't know if you want to go into a long dissertation here, but it was. I really don't know how to explain it.
A problem formed from. You took some people out to see the craft flying.
Well, I had taken some people out there, but that wasn't where the problem had stemmed from. The problem was before that. Because of all the time, I was keeping this quiet from my family and friends, everything. A lot of times I had to leave during the night. At the time, my wife obviously thought that I was running around with someone. Now, I had given permission during a lot of the security clearances to monitor my telephone, my mail, everything. I gave written permission for that. And as months went by, my wife started having an affair. Now, they were monitoring this and knew about it, but I didn't. And because they saw potential for an emotional instability, they didn't want anyone, they wanted the situation to resolve itself. So they stopped me from coming out to work. Some time went by, and then I began to get a little concerned that now I have all this information. They don't want me coming out there anymore. And this is when I started to bring a couple friends out to show them what was going on in case something actually happened to me. And then we got caught going out there. So it was just a terrible chain of events that occurred, and eventually I just wound up not going there.
70227.
Hello? I'm in the middle of an interview. Bye.
Handle that well.
Yeah.
Find out the size of the craft.
The craft is about 52 feet in diameter and about 16 feet high. Originally, some years ago when I came out, I had the dimensions wrong. I thought it was about 30 feet in diameter, and because I'm really not good at judging distances closely. However, I worked with some of the model people from the Tester Corporation, and they had some artists come out, and what we did is we took dimensions of things that I knew that were close up, and they scaled them back and essentially reconstructed the entire craft that way, and the dimensions and everything matched. So I think the final ones came out to about 52.8 feet in diameter and 16 or 15.2 feet high, something along those lines.
Tell us a little bit about the craft itself inside, where you went inside the craft, what you saw, and how, just kind of a basic function.
Well, there's 3 levels to the craft. There's the central level that the hatch lets you into. This is where there are 3 seats. In the exact center of the craft, there's the reactor that powers it. Surrounding the reactor are 3 gravity amplifiers that provides the power and the field that propel the craft. On the level underneath that are the actual waveguide antennas, horns, whatever you want to call them, that actually emit the gravity wave. They hang down in a triad at the bottom level of the craft, and they are movable. The very top part of the craft, there are small black portholes, we've called them on there. Now, I don't know exactly what's on that level, but I firmly believe that that's the navigational system, and those porthole type devices are actually sensors that determine the craft's orientation in space, so it can tell whether it's from star fixes or landmarks or who knows what, or a system that we're not familiar with, but that's how the craft determines its orientation and position in space.
How about the construction of the different components? What was it like? Was it bolted together, snapped together, held together with Velcro? What held this thing together?
Well, it was fascinating that there were no seams, no visible seams that I was able to see. There were no fastening devices, rivet screws. Everything had the appearance of being injection molded. All different systems that were connected to each other were completely smooth and connected, like you'd see in a giant, plastic injection molder. There was really nothing that was discernible as a fastening device or a seam to me anywhere.
Well, it sounds like some technology I'd love to see in Top Fuel. There would be some really fine things, dragsters we could build with some of that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's for sure.
Bob, judging from the size of the craft, the height of each level, the size of the seats, then what would be your guesstimate as to the size of the beings?
Judging from the seat and judging from the height of the ceiling, the being's height probably couldn't have exceeded 4 feet. That's tops, because when you walk into the craft, you're hunched all the way over. In fact, you have to practically crawl in, but you're hunched all the way over until you come up to the center of the craft, so it's certainly nothing our size. More probably half our size. 3.5 feet would be more realistic.
And the seats are small.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've heard, here's another area that's always been strange. You've heard all about these abductions. Everybody's talking about they've been abducted. What is your opinion on the abduction stories?
Personally, I don't believe them, but and again, that's something strange coming from me, coming out with a flying saucer story, but I don't see enough evidence, and it's just a gut feeling. I could be completely wrong, but I just have a hard time with most of them. And if in fact, they did occur, there might be 1 or 2 that may have actually occurred, with reference to Betty and Barney Hill, who were a couple in the 60s who claimed the first abduction. there is some interesting, evidence there, but I don't know for sure, and my gut feeling is that I just don't buy it.
Okay. And as you said earlier, they may be just looking at us like we're some big Disney World or something interesting to observe. And you said how long do you think they've been watching it? Did I hear you say earlier you think over 1,000 years or more than that?
Oh, more than that. I mean, there's very interesting old paintings from the Renaissance period that have pictures of flying saucers drawn in the background in the sky. Obviously not a smudge, but obviously an elliptical-shaped craft, and with a glow around it. I mean, some of these are fascinating. So, whether or not that proves anything, I mean, there's certainly mention of them in some older texts too. So, from the evidence that I've seen, it appears that they've been coming here for thousands of years.
You've never actually seen one of these beings?
No, I haven't.
Do you know have you ever heard of any underground facilities where they might have some of these beings?
Well, I've heard a lot of stories, and in fact, S4 is built into a mountain. The only thing, and the reason for that is to disguise it from satellite photographs. It doesn't go down unless there are parts of the facility that I wasn't permitted to go into, but I haven't seen any of these deep underground facilities where there's aliens working side by side with humans working on secret projects. I don't know if I believe those, and in fact, just because I have a negative opinion about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But I just have a hard time believing that.
Have you heard of any of these ships being in any other countries? Are we the only one? Is the United States the only one that has any of these craft?
Well, I've heard stories. I don't really keep abreast of all the UFO information, but the one that caught my attention was there were sightings in Sweden, I believe in the 70s and early 80s, of a farmer out there called Billy Meyer. And the reason that caught my attention is the craft looks exactly like the one that I was working on. And he has some fantastic photographs of it. Now, people claim that the photographs are phony and so on and so forth. However, they look fairly decent. And on top of that, it looks exactly like the craft that I worked on. So if it was a phony picture, the chances of him building a model that looked exactly like the actual craft are remote. So it is possible that craft was there, or we may have been testing it ourselves and taken it that far, though I doubt that. But that has caught my attention.
Okay. Has the government given you any problem about coming out and discussing this?
Initially, there was a big problem with that, and there were threats and so on and so forth. But over time, once it started airing on TV, in fact, for the first day, they broke into the news here in Las Vegas and aired it. It was pretty much a hands-off approach after that.
Bob, obviously this was all top secret information when you were working on this project, and then the news started to break the information to the general public. Did you have any problem with the government when this happened?
Well, initially, before it hit the news, there was a big problem. There were lots of threats and things of that sort. They even hassled a lot of my friends. I had a friend working at another facility on the test site working with stealth fighters, and they pulled him out of work and interrogated him, and they pretty much covered all bases. But after it went on the news, they broke into the news one night in Las Vegas that it was a hands-off approach after that, because really doing anything would really verify what I said was true, and it's pretty much been that way ever since.
And have they done anything like insert disinformation in to discredit you in any way? So people say, well, this is just Bob Lazar. He's the kook out there in Las Vegas.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the disinformation is so fantastic. It's absolutely entertaining to the point now. I mean, I've heard stories that I was a murderer, that I was selling women in South America. I mean, any bizarre story you can think of has been attributed to me. Anything to discredit what I've said, and some of them are tremendously funny, and some of them have some basis in fact, and they've just distorted it and changed it around, and it's really unbelievable. And for the most place, you get most of the stuff's on the internet because there's no ramifications of anybody ever saying on anything on the internet. I can, put up a web page that says Don Garlitz is a child molester, and you can't do a thing about it. So it's it's open season.
Mm. Drag racing is real expensive, especially top fuel racing. It's up to $10,000 a run now, whether you do that or not.
No, I didn't.
But what kind of budget do you think the military would have on a project like this?
Well, the budget would probably be phenomenal, and where the money comes from is another good question. It was probably originally funneled through some of the Star Wars budget, but it's labeled as a black project, which means it doesn't have any real accounting to it. It just absorbs money from other places, without any paper trail. But I imagine the budget is fairly substantial.
Now, where did they find the craft?
Do you know where this craft came from? Did they ever reveal to you where they found the craft?
No, I don't know if it was found, given, or dug up in a hole somewhere. The only information that I had was just the little blurb that they gave us that the craft had originated in the Zeta 2 Reticuli star system, and that's all I know.
But it wasn't damaged in any way, so it obviously wasn't crashed.
No, I don't believe that it crashed. It was in perfect operating condition.
Did the people who you worked for feel like that we had the capabilities of catching up with this technology?
Oh, absolutely. And that was part of the intent, was to, move our technology up to the stage and duplicate it. And that's what the big push was not just to duplicate it, but to duplicate it with materials that we had and were familiar with. And, I only knew what happened up to 1989. It's coming up on 10 years now. Now, wherever the project is operating, we know it's not up near Area 51 anymore, but they may have already come pretty far.
We know they didn't stop on the work, don't we?
You got that right.
What about the Roswell incident? Are you familiar with that?
I've heard a lot about that, like everyone has. Watched some specials on television here and there. I don't have any inside information on it, but it certainly seems like something occurred there.
Well, over 300 people have come forward that claim they saw the craft or saw the crash site or saw a being. So in our today's court of law, 3 people say they saw you kill somebody, you could go to the gas chamber.
Oh, right. I believe in court it's an absolute win. I defy anyone to disprove it in court. But, we don't have that opportunity.
Let's talk. Asking about, can he describe exactly how this anti-gravity, this gravity machine, you call it the size of a basketball, functions or works? Let's get into the engineering.
Bob, for the sake of our viewers out there that are technologically inclined, can you give us a kind of a brief overview of how that little small basketball reactor, how it could generate power and cause a gravitational field to form?
I'll give a brief overview of it. It can get fairly technical, but basically what it is a reactor and an accelerator. The base plate of the device is something similar to a cyclotron, where particles are sped up in a magnetic field and accelerated to a high speed. The fuel is an element that we don't have here on Earth, known as element 115. It's something we also can't synthesize in an accelerator. There are heavier elements that we do synthesize, like plutonium and things along those lines, and generally they have a half-life, which means they disintegrate very rapidly, and the higher you go up on the periodic chart, the faster these things disintegrate. However, we have always theorized that there's a little island somewhere around element 114, 115, that elements will become once again stable, like other elements are, like zinc and iron and things that we're more familiar with. Well, apparently this is the case. Whether this element occurs naturally somewhere else in the solar system, somewhere else in the galaxy, or it's synthesized is, again, speculation. However, this is the fuel that's used. When this is bombarded with an accelerated proton from, the pseudo-cyclotron on the bottom of the device, it transmutes itself. It produces element 116, which releases a form of radiation that we really haven't seen in antimatter radiation. And though antimatter sounds like something out of Star Trek, it's something that we do produce in small quantities in accelerators. It's a particle with a charge and a spin that's opposite of normal matter. The reason antimatter is so interesting to us and has been so interesting in science fiction is that when antimatter reacts with matter, when antimatter contacts matter, it releases 100%. It's almost a total conversion of that matter to energy with virtually nothing left. Now, in all other fusion and fission reactions, you typically see an efficiency of about anywhere from 0.8% to about 8%. And you know how much energy those reactions release. This is a 100% efficient reaction. So what happens is this particle is accelerated, it interacts with the element, it produces this antimatter radiation. It's just really anti-hydrogen is what it's producing. And this is reacted with a gaseous matter target. When they react, they produce a small explosion, a tremendous amount of heat. And how that heat is converted into electricity is a thermionic generator, which is something along the lines of a thermocouple. It's something that when it gets hot, as long as you put heat energy into it, it produces electrical energy out. However, the devices, we power spacecraft with them. We use, in fact, that probe that just went to Saturn, the Cassini probe, had 70 some odd pounds of plutonium in it, and it used a thermionic generator, but ours aren't quite that efficient. This is, again, virtually 100% efficient, that the reactor itself doesn't even get hot when it's operating. That's just how the reactor produces a large amount of electrical energy. It also produces, because of the element 115, which happens to have a unique property, that this gravitational field extends beyond the perimeter of the atom. And again, we can get into a lot of particle physics in that there are some forces that are mislabeled. But this field that the element produces is amplified, very similar to a microwave. In fact, microwaves are transmitted through waveguides, which are like pipes, and that's very similar to how this is amplified and also transmitted essentially through pipes, through waveguides throughout the craft, and focused, amplified, and used for propulsion.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it gets pretty hairy, but it is a fascinating technology.
This has got to be, Bob, the biggest story in the history of mankind. Why has the mainstream press stayed off of it completely? And you know how they love big stories.
Well, they do, but it's a dangerous story. It's like reporting on Bigfoot because there's not a lot of evidence. Once you leave a project like that, you don't leave with drawings and descriptions. For the most part, they virtually erase your background, and I know that sounds like Mission Impossible, but even the places that I worked, the places that I was educated, deny that I was ever there. I mean, it's a far-reaching thing, and without proof, nobody wants to look like they have egg on their face, so you don't get mainstream anything to cover this. Until there's more evidence, there's more proof, and even if you got 2 or 3 scientists to come forward, that's still not enough. People want hardcore facts. They want things they can photograph, things they can touch, and things they can verify, and because of the secrecy involved, even if that was about to happen, it would be squashed by the government under the guise of national security. No, you can't air that special. No, you can't do this, so on and so forth. So I don't think it's going to come out until they decide that they want it out.
Can the American people handle the truth?
I think so. The American people can handle a lot. It may not be what they want to hear. It may interfere with a lot of their current beliefs. But we adjust to everything. We really do. I think they're really underrating us.
That probably goes for the rest of the world, too, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
The room next door, he has here, Don, looks like a chemical laboratory or something.
Oh, yeah, that's a lab.
Okay, I want to ask him about what's in the room next door. It looks like a lab.
There's been millions of sightings. My wife and I have seen a couple of things ourselves that were absolutely unexplainable. Why do you think with all that sightings, there's just so few actual photographs and most of them are blurry? Has that got something to do perhaps with the way the craft operates? Or is it just the fact that when people see it, they don't see it that long and there wasn't camera equipment available? What's your opinion on that?
Well, there's 2 points you made. First of all is having any equipment available. Usually a sighting is exactly what you say, a sighting. It's an event that happens, it's over. How many photographs do you have of car accidents? How many photographs have you seen of car accidents? other than at the drag strip because we know something's going to happen. But just out on the road, you never have one.
No, that's true.
It's because the event happens and it's over. Now, the only reason you know about it or the news crew gets there because it stays there after it happened. But the actual accident, there are no photographs of because it's a fleeting event. And any fleeting event, that's something that you don't see. And a lot of people harp on that saying, well, there's no photographs of them flying. Well, it happened for 2 seconds. What do you want from us? Even if you got a camcorder in your hand, who says you're going to be, looking at the thing? On top of that, because these crafts operate using a gravitational engine, the gravity itself distorts light and space and time. And all that stuff sounds, again, like science fiction and something that's difficult to believe. But we know that gravity bends light, bends space, and bends time. And because of that factor, there are, for instance, on the craft that I worked under, I was told that from certain vantage points underneath the craft, you can't see the craft, you can only see the sky above it because the light is bent around the craft. So there certainly could be situations where you could see something and someone 20 or 30 feet away from you could be looking at a clear blue sky and not see it. It's just the way things happen.
Will broadcasting this interview get you or I in any trouble?
What was that? I missed it.
Will broadcasting this interview get you or I in any trouble?
I don't think so. It's been about, like I said, almost 10 years, and, this has been on the news and gone over a bunch of times, and I think it's pretty much staying where it is. I don't see any problems.
So nobody's going to be calling up ESPN saying, don't run that piece.
Well, if they do, it wouldn't really surprise me.
Okay, Don, asking about his room next door.
Bob, what's in the room next door here?
Oh, that's my lab in here. I do a lot of independent research or consultation, anything science related, physics related, along with computer modeling, anything along those lines.
You told me you were just you were designing or did the computer work on a rocket car that's going to go 900 miles an hour.
Well, I have a friend. His name is Waldo Stakes, and him and a rocket engineer, Ken Mason, built this car. And I believe this winter they're going to start running it. It's called Sonic Wind, and it's slated to go over 900 miles on ice. I believe the ice speed record's only in 200 some odd miles an hour. So I ran a couple of simulations on my computer and just to see how the thing would perform. But it should be very interesting to see that. It's a liquid oxygen, a LOX alcohol powered rocket. In fact, the rocket's a booster off an Atlas rocket, one of those old rockets from the 50s, but it's quite a machine.
I'd like to get you to look at my swamp rat 32 and 4 and see how it looks aerodynamic in here, because you've got a lot of experience in aerodynamics.
Yeah, to some extent.
And see if I was on the right track, and maybe give me some tips there.
Well, it couldn't hurt to run it through the computer.
I think we'll do that. Bob, it's been great talking with you, and thanks a million. I know from myself and all of my fans, we really thank you for doing this interview. It's certainly been enlightening.
Well, it was my pleasure.
Well, on that, tell what you can do. Tell us a little bit about in the briefing room, because you had that on your tape. Tell us a little bit what happened when you went into this room. Tell us about the briefing room and some of the things that happened in there.
There wasn't a whole lot. It was a small room. It was. I was essentially left with a bunch of briefings, 120 some odd. I no longer can even remember how many. And basically, they just contained a small overview of each satellite project that was going on. So we all knew the existence of each other. We just didn't know specifically what they were doing. For instance, there was a group that was dealing with the metallurgy of the craft. There was a group dealing with, virtually every aspect of it. So again, it gave us just an overview of what was going on and the name of some of the projects, as I'm sure they had specific information dealing with their project and just had a small overview of what our group was working on. So that's basically all it was just reading through a lot of that, and along with some of the other information that was apparently collected from the craft or information that they had learned in the past.
What can you tell us about any bodies of alien beings?
Well, there apparently were some somewhere. There were some autopsy pictures of a being I don't know if that had to do, if this was something that was just in the history of the project, or if it was something that was there, or if it was something that had to relate, to this craft. But of the 2 photographs that I saw, there were only 2 there. It was a small being just showing the chest, and the chest was cut in a T fashion with the skin pulled back, and it was the thing had just one central organ, as if that looked. Have you ever seen a liver in the supermarket? Just kind of a brown, almost liquid-looking thing, but it had just one central organ, and then the next photographs had the organ vivisectioned, and it had seemed like all the organs you normally had just grown together. There was a section of it that apparently pumped blood, another section of it that processed air, and it just seemed, to be one single organ, as opposed to little separate units here and there. But it was, and again, there was no information with it. We were just given the information knowing of the existence, just in case any information might help us in determining, what our particular project did. For instance, we were working in the power and propulsion system. There was no reason for us to have a tour of the inside of the craft. However, maybe the placement of the reactor was important to its operation, so we did have to see where it was. We did have to see some satellite things around what was going on.
Did you knowingly lie when you said you had actually seen anti-gravity propulsion in operation? No.
I mean, it's to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
Bob Lazar's tale reads like a page ripped from a science fiction novel, yet it's a narrative he's presented as his own real-life experience, captivating those intrigued by the mysteries of ufology for years. Imagine a young scientist, previously working on a classified particle accelerator project at Los Alamos National Laboratory, catching the eye of military contractors. This isn't the plot of a movie. It's how Lazar describes the beginning of his journey into the depths of one of the most secretive projects related to extraterrestrial technology.
I did get a chance to look inside the craft on only one occasion, and this was important because where the reactor sat might have been critical to how it operated.
Lazar claims he was whisked away to work at a site known as S4, a place so shrouded in mystery it could easily be mistaken for a mirage in the Nevada desert, just a stone's throw from the infamous Area 51.
You used to work at Area 51.
Well, we want to be accurate.
Okay.
Area S4.
S4, okay.
It's about 15 miles south of Area 51.
According to him, S4 was ingeniously camouflaged against the desert backdrop, designed to be invisible to the untrained eye and to keep prying eyes at bay. The security at S4, as Lazar recounts, was nothing short of what you'd expect for a facility rumored to house the secrets of the universe. Armed guards, surveillance cameras at every turn, and an advanced security system that could read the very bones in your hand. It was clear that whatever was being hidden here was of paramount importance. Lazar paints a picture of a work environment governed by the principle of need to know, where information was doled out sparingly, ensuring that the secrets of S4 remained just that, secrets.
Did you ask any questions about
No,
that?
there's no asking
There's
questions.
no asking questions.
No.
At the heart of Lazar's extraordinary claims are his alleged encounters with 9 different extraterrestrial spacecraft, each with its own unique design and capabilities. Among these, the Sport model stands out, a disc-shaped craft that seems to leap from the pages of a 1950s sci-fi magazine.
There were 3 seats. They sat around, the reactor was in the dead center of it, and then equidistant around there were 3 seats. And that's all.
He describes being part of a team tasked with reverse engineering the propulsion systems of these crafts, systems that defied all known laws of physics.
Look, everyone doesn't necessarily start at a steam engine and go to an internal combustion engine and then, electric power, nuclear power, and go up the ladder that we came on.
Central to these propulsion systems, Lazar claims, was element 115, a substance not even recognized by science at the time of his disclosures, but later added to the periodic table as moscovium. This element, according to Lazar, was the key to unlocking anti-gravity propulsion, allowing these crafts to perform maneuvers that would be impossible for any human-made machine. Lazar provides vivid descriptions of the craft's interiors, specifically the sport model, which was equipped with a central reactor and 3 gravity amplifiers. These components, he says, could manipulate gravitational waves, allowing the craft to bend space-time and travel at unimaginable speeds. It's a concept that, if true, would revolutionize our understanding of travel and propulsion. In 1989, Lazar decided to bring his story to the public, sharing his experiences in interviews that would ignite a firestorm of debate and speculation. His claims were met with skepticism, as many questioned the veracity of his education, employment background, and the feasibility of the technologies he described. In 1989, Bob Lazar did something that would forever change the landscape of ufology and how the world views the secretive military base known as Area 51.
How would you describe it?
I guess within the Area 51 compound, you can call that a subset of Area 51.
With a mixture of concern and a sense of duty, Lazar stepped into the spotlight on Las Vegas television, guided by investigative reporter George Knapp. He wasn't seeking fame. Instead, he was driven by a belief that the public had the right to know about the advanced technology he claimed was being concealed by the government. His revelations opened a Pandora's box, challenging us to question the boundaries of our knowledge and what mysteries the government might be keeping from us. However, Lazar's extraordinary tales were met with a healthy dose of skepticism. Critics were quick to point out the inconsistencies in his narrative, the apparent absence of evidence to back his claims, and the puzzling gaps in his academic and professional history. These controversies have swirled around Lazar, casting shadows of doubt on his credibility.
Again, I forgot where the hell I am.
Yet, despite the skepticism, Lazar's story has ignited a global conversation, thrusting Area 51 from the shadows of obscurity into the glaring light of public curiosity. Lazar's impact on the cultural zeitgeist cannot be understated. His allegations have fueled the imagination of millions, leading to an explosion of documentaries, books, and heated debates. Area 51, once just another top-secret military site, is now synonymous with alien technology and cover-ups, thanks in no small part to Lazar. His claims have kept the conversation about UFOs and the potential for alien contact alive, engaging a new generation of seekers and skeptics alike. The debate over Lazar's credibility continues to rage, with opinions sharply divided. Yet, regardless of where one stands on the issue, it's clear that his narrative has significantly shaped the discourse on extraterrestrial technology and government transparency. Bob Lazar's tales of his time working on alien spacecraft give us a peek into what sounds like the set of a sci-fi movie, especially when he talks about the sport model UFO. Picture this: a sleek, disc-shaped craft that seems to have leaped right out of the pages of a UFO conspiracy theory into reality. Lazar says this design isn't just for show, it's about aerodynamic efficiency. Imagine a vehicle that glides through space, air, and maybe even water with the greatest of ease. Its disc shape cutting down on resistance and allowing it to zip in any direction it pleases. It's the ultimate in alien engineering, blending the iconic look we've all come to associate with flying saucers with practical design features that make interstellar travel a breeze. But let's get down to specifics. According to Lazar, the sport model isn't some behemoth mothership.
What is the roughly the size of this thing?
We came up with 52 feet in diameter.
This compact size hints at a craft designed for nimbleness, perhaps used for quick trips across the cosmos rather than carrying loads of extraterrestrial passengers. And it's not just any old material making up the exterior of this UFO.
There are no, first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere.
Lazar describes it as a smooth metallic surface, suggesting it's built to survive the harsh conditions of space travel. From withstanding the bombardment of cosmic radiation to shrugging off the impact of micrometeorites, this material, whatever it is, sounds like it's pretty tough stuff. Lazar even hints that it might be some kind of unknown alloy or advanced metamaterial, specially chosen for its propulsion and stealth capabilities. Diving into Bob Lazar's account of the sport model UFO, he paints a picture of an alien craft that's as intriguing on the inside as it is on the outside. According to Lazar, this isn't just a flying disc, it's a marvel of extraterrestrial architecture cleverly divided into 3 levels, each with a distinct purpose. It's like the designers, whoever or whatever they might be, took a page out of human engineering books but then added a twist that's out of this world. Starting at the bottom, the lower level of the craft is where all the magic happens, so to speak. Here lies the heart of the UFO's propulsion system, equipped with 3 gravity amplifiers and their waveguides. These aren't your average engine parts. They're the components that supposedly allow the craft to bend gravity to its will, making it possible to zip across the cosmos with ease. The strategic placement of these amplifiers at the craft's base is a thoughtful touch, ensuring stability and a smooth distribution of gravitational energy. Moving up to the middle deck, we find the crew's quarters. Given the UFO's overall dimensions, space here is at a premium, designed for occupants a bit smaller than your average human. This level likely packs in the essentials for life support and day-to-day operations, although Lazar leaves us guessing on the specifics of how these systems cater to the needs of its non-human users. It's a compact, efficient layout that makes you wonder about the daily lives of its extraterrestrial crew. At the top, the craft features a control hub that sounds like something straight out of a science fiction saga. The navigation and control systems here are said to be unlike anything we're familiar with, possibly incorporating holographic displays or even direct neural connections for piloting the craft. It suggests a level of technology and user interface design that humanity can only dream of, tailored for beings with physical traits quite different from our own. Lazar also notes an astonishing detail about the UFO's construction. There are no visible seams, rivets, or any signs of how it was put together. It's as if the entire craft was manufactured in one piece, hinting at a process that could involve molecular-level precision or materials that self-assemble. The overall design, with its disc shape and thoughtful distribution of internal systems, speaks to a philosophy where adaptability and efficiency are paramount, ensuring the craft can handle whatever the universe throws its way. Central to his eye-opening claims is the propulsion system of these alien crafts, powered by something straight out of a sci-fi novel, Element 115, or Moscovium, as it's known today. Back when Lazar first shared his experiences, Moscovium was a mere hypothesis, absent from the periodic table and unfathomable to mainstream science. Yet, according to him, this element was the key to unlocking gravity-defying travel across the cosmos. Lazar's description of using Element 115 sounds like alchemy of the future. He talks about a stable isotope of this element, undiscovered and unproduced on Earth, that could harness immense energy through an antimatter reaction. We're talking about converting tiny amounts of material into vast amounts of power, enough to fuel the craft's journey through the stars. This process, according to Lazar, could generate gravitational fields, propelling the spacecraft in ways that defy our current understanding of physics. But how exactly does this craft move? Enter the gravity amplifiers. Lazar describes these as the linchpins of the spacecraft's navigation, capable of bending gravity to the craft's will. With 3 of these amplifiers on board, the craft could maneuver with unparalleled agility, hovering, taking off vertically, and gliding in any direction as if the laws of motion were mere suggestions. This isn't just about speeding through space, it's about reshaping the fabric of reality to move from point A to point B. The implications of such technology are staggering, offering a glimpse into a mode of travel that could take us to the stars and beyond without breaking a sweat. Lazar's accounts, whether you choose to believe them or not, ignite the imagination and challenge us to consider the possibilities that might lie just beyond the edge of our current scientific understanding.
The government is holding 9 alien spacecraft that are propelled by a modified gravity generator. Work is being conducted 15 miles south of Groom Lake at that isolated area only, designated as S4.
There is hardly a location that generates more attention than Area 51 in alien study circles. However, many people might be shocked to learn that what they think of the secret location is completely wrong. As popular theorist Bob Lazar reveals, Area 51 is not what you think. Stay tuned as we bring you details of Bob Lazar's expose of Area 51. Area 51. Just mentioning its name immediately evokes images of UFOs, extraterrestrial encounters, and top-secret government experiments. The mythos surrounding this mysterious desert facility are so deeply embedded in popular culture that it's nearly impossible not to get caught up in the excitement. Located in the Nevada desert, miles from anywhere, Area 51 has long been the subject of fascination. Its intense security and secretive operations provide the perfect backdrop for accounts of otherworldly encounters. One of the most tantalizing tales is that of the recovered UFOs stored within the hidden hangars of Area 51. Whispered tales say that these aren't just any UFOs. They're remnants from the infamous Roswell incident of 1947. According to the reports, when an unidentified flying object crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, its debris and possibly its extraterrestrial occupants were whisked away to Area 51 for examination and study. Can you just imagine the level of cutting-edge technology, perhaps even from other galaxies, being reverse-engineered inside those guarded walls? Speaking of extraterrestrial occupants, the tales of alien encounters within Area 51 are nothing short of electrifying. Alleged former employees have spoken under the cloak of anonymity about their experiences with beings not of this earth. There are tales of the mysterious Greys, those slender, large-eyed aliens that have become iconic in UFO lore, being kept in the depths of the facility, possibly collaborating with our own scientists. The potential shared knowledge and technology between Earthlings and extraterrestrials could be shaping the very future of our planet. Area 51's airspace, known as R4808N, is one of the most restricted airspaces in the world. Why such tight control? Legends say it's because of the advanced and experimental aircraft tested there, some of which might just be inspired by alien technology. From the rapid zigzagging maneuvers of unknown craft to the hovering abilities that defy traditional aviation understanding, eyewitnesses have reported some truly bewildering sights in the skies above the desert. With every new sighting, the belief that Area 51 holds aircraft technology beyond our wildest dreams only grows stronger. Amidst the swirling tales of extraterrestrial tech, another captivating narrative emerges, that of time travel experiments. The rumors are wild and wonderful. Some believe that deep within Area 51, scientists are bending the very fabric of time itself. The implications are staggering. Are there time travelers among us sent from Area 51 to explore or observe different epochs? The very thought of what they might have witnessed or where they might have ventured is enough to set the imagination aflame. Then, there's the so-called moon landing conspiracy. According to some, the historic Apollo moon landing in 1969 was staged. And where better to film such a colossal undertaking than, you guessed it, in the vast, desolate expanse of the Nevada desert, with Area 51's resources at hand. Picture vast sound stages, advanced lighting and rigging, and even lunar landers being tested and prepped for their televised journey. While the moon landing remains one of humanity's proudest achievements, the legends of its potential fabrication at Area 51 add an extra layer of intrigue to an already phenomenal event. The underground labyrinth of Area 51 is another topic of intense speculation. With stories of miles and miles of subterranean facilities, one has to wonder what might be lurking below. Could there be whole cities beneath the sands, inhabited by both humans and aliens, underground railways connecting secret bases, or chambers containing wonders, or horrors, that the world is not yet ready to see? The secrets buried deep under Area 51 might be more astounding than anything above ground. And who can forget the legends surrounding the majestic men in black? These mysterious, well-dressed figures are believed to be enforcers of silence, ensuring that those who know too much about Area 51's extraterrestrial dealings are kept quiet. Sightings of these enigmatic individuals, often reported to exhibit odd behavior or possess strange technologies, add another thrilling layer to the Area 51 lore. Area 51's status as a cultural phenomenon reached new heights when, in 2019, a social media event proposed a mass raid on the facility. Millions expressed their intent to storm Area 51 inches in a semi-joking quest to see them aliens. While the actual event turned out to be more of a friendly gathering than a raid, it demonstrated the immense global curiosity surrounding the secrets the base might hold. While the authorities try hard to withhold or control information, they can't succeed completely in preventing the flow of information. Many leakers have come out to reveal exactly what goes on inside the secrecy of Area 51. One of the most popular leakers is Bob Lazar, a man who has refused to be silenced despite multiple attempts to make him go away. His deep connection to the infamous area puts him in a good position to spill the beans. Nestled near Area 51, the S4 facility, according to Lazar, is where some of the U.S. government's most closely guarded secrets reside. Tucked away in the mountains and camouflaged into the desert landscape, the hangars at S4 supposedly hold a fleet of alien spacecraft. Lazar claimed to have been one of the chosen few brought into these hidden hangars, and what he saw inside was absolutely mind-blowing. Lazar was said to have been hired to reverse engineer the propulsion systems of these incredible crafts. Imagine for a moment being tasked with decoding technology that isn't just generations ahead, but possibly millennia, and not from another nation, but another world entirely. The main propulsion system, as described by Lazar, was the element 115 inches, or ununpentium. This element, which at the time of his claims was not yet synthesized on Earth, was said to provide the gravitational propulsion that these spacecraft utilized. If this were true, it could revolutionize our understanding of physics. Each of the 9 spaceships was distinct, suggesting they were from different extraterrestrial origins or designed for varied purposes. Lazar gave some of them catchy nicknames based on their shapes, like the Sport Model and the Top Hat. While they all had sleek and smooth exteriors, devoid of any visible seams, rivets, or traditional aerospace components, it was their interiors that were truly fascinating. The inside of these crafts, according to Lazar, were minimalistic and appeared to be molded out of a single material. The seats were small, hinting at the possibility of smaller-sized pilots. Control panels were absent of buttons or switches, presenting an enigma on how they were operated. But perhaps the most compelling part of his testimony on the interior of these crafts was the description of the propulsion system. 3 gravity amplifiers and the core reactor that harnessed element 115 to create gravitational waves. This was propulsion on a level humans could only dream of. Lazar's descriptions of this element were fascinating. According to him, element 115 was used as fuel in the reactor of the alien spacecraft, providing the immense energy required to produce the gravitational fields the crafts used for propulsion. This was monumental. If true, it meant that somewhere out in the universe, civilizations had harnessed the power of an element unknown to humanity to traverse the vastness of space. Now, let's get into the really exciting part, the twist in the tale. At the time of Lazar's claims, element 115 was not even part of the periodic table. Skeptics were quick to point out this discrepancy as evidence against his assertions, but the universe, it seems, had a few surprises up its sleeve. In the subsequent decades, advances in particle physics and chemistry led to the discovery of new elements, filling up gaps in the periodic table. Scientists pushed the boundaries of what was known, and then the monumental happened. In 2003, researchers announced they had successfully synthesized element 115. The world of science and the community of UFO enthusiasts collided in a jubilant celebration. This new element was produced by smashing calcium particles into americium, and while it only existed for a fraction of a second before decaying, it was a groundbreaking discovery. Later, in 2013, Swedish scientists were able to confirm the existence of element 115, and in 2015, it was given the official name Moscovium, in honor of the Moscow Institute, where it was first synthesized. Now let's pause and consider the implications of this. Lazar, years before the official scientific discovery, had detailed this element and its incredible properties. With Moscovium's confirmation, a significant pillar of Lazar's testimony was validated. Could it be that he really had insider knowledge of an alien technology that utilized this unique element? It's essential to note some differences, though. The synthesized Moscovium has a very short half-life, decaying rapidly, which contrasts with Lazar's claims of stable versions of element 115 being used in alien reactors. However, this doesn't necessarily invalidate Lazar's assertions. Elements can have different isotopes, each with unique properties. The naturally occurring stable isotope of element 115, as described by Lazar, might just be waiting to be discovered. Beyond propulsion systems and alien crafts, the discovery of Moscovium has broader implications for science and humanity. The addition of new elements to the periodic table deepens our understanding of the universe and its building blocks. Every new element brings with it the potential for unprecedented innovations in technology, medicine, energy, and more. For UFO enthusiasts and believers in Lazar's story, the discovery of Moscovium was a thrilling affirmation. It's moments like these where the seemingly fantastical converges with proven science that make the realm of extraterrestrial investigation so exhilarating. Imagine the vast repositories of knowledge and technology that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations might possess. If element 115 is just a glimpse into that world, what other wonders might be out there? Anti-gravity, warp drives, interdimensional travel. The possibilities are boundless. Moreover, the Element 115 saga serves as a reminder to keep an open mind. What seems outlandish today might be a scientific reality tomorrow. It beckons us to listen, with a critical but open mind, to the trailblazers, the out-of-the-box thinkers, and yes, even the supposed whistleblowers from secretive government facilities. According to Lazar, the anti-gravity propulsion system consisted of three main components: a reactor, an amplifier, and an emitter. The reactor was a spherical device that contained a small amount of element 115, a synthetic element that could generate a powerful gravitational field. The amplifier was a cone-shaped device that amplified the gravitational field produced by the reactor. The emitter was a circular device that emitted the amplified gravitational field in a specific direction. Lazar says that the reactor worked by bombarding element 115 with protons, which caused it to decay into element 116, which was unstable and released antimatter. The antimatter then reacted with matter in a small annihilation reactor, which produced heat and electricity. The electricity powered the amplifier and the emitter, which created and controlled the gravitational field. Lazar says that the emitter could be rotated and tilted to change the direction and angle of the gravitational field. By doing so, the craft could create a distortion in space and time around itself, which reduced its mass and inertia and allowed it to accelerate and maneuver at incredible speeds. The craft could also create a gravitational wave that could warp space and time in front of it, creating a shortcut or a wormhole that could transport it to distant locations in the universe. Lazar says that he learned some of the principles and equations behind the anti-gravity propulsion system from reading briefing documents and observing test flights. He says that he also tried to reverse engineer some of the components, such as the reactor and the amplifier, but he faced many difficulties and dangers. He says that he was amazed by the sophistication and elegance of the alien technology, which was far beyond human comprehension and capabilities. Beyond the technology, Lazar's accounts of the stringent security measures at S4 underscored the gravity of the projects. He spoke of armed guards on constant supervision, and even mentioned the use of intimidating scare tactics to ensure complete confidentiality. The mere existence of such tight security protocols speaks volumes about the significance and sensitivity of the undertakings at S4. Lazar's descriptions also opened a window into the potential origins of UFO sightings. With advanced gravitational propulsion, these crafts could achieve high-speed maneuvers in any direction, defying the conventional laws of motion and inertia. Lazar's explanation of how the crafts moved, by generating a gravitational field and falling into it, provides a possible explanation for the almost magical, zigzagging movements reported by countless UFO witnesses. And then there's the tantalizing hint Lazar dropped about the origin of these spacecraft. In one of his interviews, he mentioned a brief glimpse of a document, suggesting that one of the crafts was an archaeological find, meaning it was dug up from the Earth. Could it be possible that extraterrestrials visited our planet thousands or even millions of years ago, leaving behind a piece of their advanced technology? The repercussions of Bob Lazar's revelations are far-reaching. If true, they could signify that we're not alone in the universe, that interstellar travel is attainable, and that governments may be keeping profound secrets about our place in the cosmic neighborhood. Throughout the years, debates have raged about the authenticity of Lazar's claims. Skeptics have pointed out discrepancies in his narrative and questioned his background, while believers uphold him as a whistleblower, courageously revealing truths that the world deserves to know. Whatever side of the fence one might be on, there's no denying the impact of his story. The tale of Bob Lazar and the 9 spaceships at S4 has fueled UFO discussions for decades. It has inspired movies, documentaries, and countless discussions in the realms of physics, aerospace, and extraterrestrial life. His detailed descriptions of the crafts, from their alien aesthetics to the science fiction-like propulsion systems, are a treasure trove for enthusiasts and dreamers. With each passing year, as technology advances and the boundaries of what's possible expand, the claims of Bob Lazar seem less like far-fetched tales and more like tantalizing possibilities. The story of S4 and its 9 mysterious spacecraft remains one of the most captivating chapters in the annals of UFO lore. In the end, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the tales of Bob Lazar and his experiences at S4 ignite the imagination and keep us all looking to the stars with wonder and anticipation. Lazar says that he witnessed several test flights of the craft, which could perform incredible maneuvers and defy the laws of physics. He also says that he read briefing documents that revealed the origin and history of the alien visitors, who were apparently from a planet called Zeta Reticuli. Zeta Reticuli, located about 39.3 light-years from Earth, is a binary star system in the southern constellation of Reticulum. Not only does this star system hold a fascination for astronomers, but it's also been a key player in UFO accounts for decades. The briefing documents Lazar described were a goldmine of information. They painted a picture of our visitors' journey spanning thousands of years. These beings, referred to as the Greys, due to their distinctive skin color, had been monitoring our planet for millennia. The files stated that these extraterrestrial beings first took notice of Earth around 10,000 years ago, drawn by our planet's rich biodiversity and rapid evolutionary leaps. The Greys, with their almond-shaped eyes and slight builds, have often been depicted in popular culture, but it was startling to find that they were not mere products of imagination. The records claimed that the Greys had established clandestine contact with early human civilizations, helping guide some of our technological and spiritual advancements. The pyramids of Egypt, the Nazca lines of Peru, and other ancient marvels, could they all have been influenced by our interstellar visitors? But why Zeta Reticuli? What's so special about this star system? Well, according to the briefing documents, their home planet circling Zeta Reticuli offered the perfect conditions for their species. With 2 main sequence stars in the system, their home had stable solar cycles and temperatures that allowed for their particular form of life to thrive. Over millennia, as they advanced, they became master travelers of the cosmos, searching for other civilizations and life forms, ultimately leading them to us. As the documents continued, it became evident that their interest in our species wasn't purely scientific or observational. Our emotional spectrum, capacity for creativity, and even our physical structures held immense intrigue for them. It seems that while they surpassed us in technological evolution, there were elements of the human experience they didn't quite grasp. Emotions like love, fear, joy, and sorrow were phenomena they sought to understand better. However, some curious researchers and enthusiasts have tried to find clues and hints about the S4 facility by examining satellite images, aerial photographs, and eyewitness accounts. One pilot named Gabriel Zeifman managed to fly around Area 51 and Papoose Lake in 2020, taking rare pictures of the restricted airspace. He did not see any signs of the S4 facility, but he did capture some interesting features, such as range targets, drone bases, and UFO legends. Another researcher named Michael Schratt created 3D illustrations of the S4 facility based on Lazar's descriptions and other sources. He gave a virtual walkthrough of the facility at the 2011 International UFO Congress, showing how the hangar doors, the sport model, and other elements would look like. According to Lazar, he decided to go public with his story after he witnessed a security breach at S4, where he saw his colleague being threatened by a gun-wielding guard for bringing a friend to the facility. He also said he was concerned about his own safety and the safety of his family, as he suspected that he was being monitored and followed by unknown agents. He said he wanted to expose the truth and protect himself from possible harm by revealing his identity and his work. Lazar first contacted George Knapp, a journalist from Las Vegas, who interviewed him anonymously in May 1989. He used the pseudonym Dennis and hid his face behind a silhouette. He described his work at S4 and the alien craft he had seen there. He also revealed some details about the alien technology, such as the anti-gravity reactor and the element 115. However, Lazar's anonymity did not last long. In November 1989, he agreed to reveal his real name and face in another interview with Knapp. He also took Knapp and some friends to a desert location near Area 51, where he claimed they could see the test flights of the alien craft on certain nights. They managed to film some lights in the sky, but they were also caught by the security forces and detained for trespassing. After Lazar's story became public, he faced a lot of harassment, threats, and legal troubles. He said he received death threats from anonymous callers, who warned him to keep quiet or else. He also said he was raided by the authorities several times, who searched his home and his business for evidence of element 115 or other classified materials. He claimed that they confiscated some of his equipment and documents, and tried to erase his records and discredit him. Lazar was also arrested in 1990 for his involvement in a prostitution ring, where he admitted to helping his friends set up a brothel in Las Vegas. He pleaded guilty to pandering, and was sentenced to 150 hours of community service and 6 months of probation. He said that this was part of a smear campaign against him orchestrated by the government to ruin his reputation and credibility. Lazar has maintained his story over the years despite the criticism and skepticism from many people, including some ufologists and scientists. He has appeared in several documentaries and interviews where he has repeated his claims and defended his evidence. He has also continued to run his business, United Nuclear Scientific Equipment and Supplies, which sells various chemicals and materials. Lazar's story has received some validation from NASA and the U.S. Congress, who have shown more interest and openness in investigating the UFO phenomenon. NASA has been actively searching for signs of life beyond Earth, using various missions and instruments, such as the Mars rovers, the Kepler telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, and the Breakthrough Listen project. NASA has also announced plans to send a probe to Europa, one of Jupiter's moons that may harbor a subsurface ocean with potential life. NASA has also stated that it expects to find evidence of alien life within the next 20 years. The U.S. Congress has also taken a more serious approach to the UFO issue, especially after the release of several videos and reports that showed unexplained aerial phenomena or UAPs encountered by military pilots and personnel. In July 2023, the House Oversight Committee convened a landmark panel on UAPs, where 3 witnesses shared their experiences and opinions on the topic. One of them was David Grush, an ex-Air Force intelligence officer, who claimed that the U.S. government is concealing a long-standing program that retrieves and reverse engineers UAPs, some of which contained non-human biological material. He also claimed that he had seen documents that confirmed Lazar's story about S4 and the alien technology there. The hearing was the most serious acknowledgement yet that UAPs deserve scrutiny at the highest levels of government. The lawmakers and witnesses alike used the panel to demand greater transparency and accountability around UAPs from the military and other agencies. They also called for an official reporting process for military personnel or members of the public to report unexplained sightings without fear of ridicule or retaliation. They also acknowledged that UAPs pose a potential national security threat, as well as an opportunity for scientific discovery. The actions and statements of NASA and the U.S. Congress have confirmed the existence of aliens, or at least the possibility of it. They also support Lazar's story about S4 and his work there.
Now, I can't say that I could absolutely state for certainty how anything actually worked.
Now, how did you know at all how they were piloting it? Because they were doing some tests where they were having these things fly around in the sky. And this is what gets us deeper into your story.
Right. I was out there for one test. Right. In fact, I was in with Barry in the lab, and Dennis came in and said, "We're about to run a test. Why don't you guys come out?" Or I think he said, "Barry, why don't you come out here and bring Bob with you?" We went out there, and the craft was already outside the hangar and was just preparing to lift off. Now, they were in communication with somebody in the craft.
So there was a person in the craft.
Yeah, there was certainly a person in there. Now, it's not a comfortable place to be in because it's small, so the guy has to be sitting on the floor in the middle, my best guess.
And this is the same specific craft that you worked on because that was the only craft that you were in.
The only one that I touched and worked on. And it quietly lifted off the ground, which was incredibly impressive to see.
Quietly or silently?
Well, quietly, because it
did it make some sort of a noise?
It produced a little corona discharge from the bottom. A corona discharge is kind of a high voltage brush, little bluish glow discharge. As it was lifting off the ground, you can hear a slight hiss sound. Now, as soon as it cleared the ground by about 5 or 10 feet, maybe even less than that, the hissing stopped and the blue glow disappeared. So it lifted off quietly, and then it hovered silently, if you want to be specific.
Wow. So then what kind of maneuvers was it doing?
It took for that particular time, it took off, moved a little around to the left and right, and then sat back down. The craft itself, they communicated with it with because I saw the guy talking in a regular VHF radio to the person in the craft. And I even saw the frequency that was on the frequency counter of the communication, the transceiver there. But what's weird is he shouldn't be able to communicate with the craft with a radio. The radio wave should bend around the craft. I mean, it shouldn't be possible. Every single thing about the craft and the way they operated didn't make any sense to us. I mean, that's something we talked about for a while after.
Why should the frequency bend around the craft?
Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft, and it produces a heart-shaped gravitational distortion around the craft. Now, if the craft is sitting in the air and you walk underneath it and look up, you actually cannot see the craft. The light bends around it. You're bending gravity, bends light. It bends radio waves. It shouldn't be possible to communicate with a craft that has an envelope around it that's distorting all forms of energy. But they were apparently in contact with it. So as time went on, I started getting a little concerned, and I took my closest friends and just kind of got together and I said, hey, remember that job I told you about? This is what's going on. And you don't need to take my word for it. Wednesday night, we need to all go out here. I want to show you what's going on. So I took everybody and we went out to, remember, since I had the test flight schedule, and went outside the base, out into the desert, and so everybody could see, one of the high performance tests. And, it left quite an imprint on everybody, so they knew I wasn't.
And there's videos
crazy.
of these tests, right?
Yeah, but remember, this is it's in the dark in the 80s with a big monster-sized camcorder, and you got, a bright light jumping around. But, yeah, I mean, we did video of it, but there's no, by today's standards, it's...
But is your video specifically available, the video that you took?
Yeah, well, George Knapp has it.
Is it online?
I give it down.
Do you know?
I have no idea.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
It's really an extension of the reactor in the center, and that's a waveguide, which allows the emission of the gravity wave, which forms kind of a heart shape over the whole craft. That's how it creates its distortion. These gravity emitters can be swung all the way up to 180 degrees, and this allows the craft to essentially stand on two of them and hover, while this one swings up and creates a distortion in front of it, allowing the craft to slide forward. So that's how their low power mode, Omicron configuration operate. The Delta configuration uses all three, and unlike science fiction movies where you see flying saucers just flying along like that, they actually fly belly first. The craft flies along, leaves the atmosphere of the planet, it turns its belly to the destination, the three amplifiers focus in on the destination, and that's how it proceeds. So that's basically the operation of it and overall how things were laid out inside the craft.
Look at some of the technology you saw. Now, when did you first get the idea? What's the first thing you saw that made you convinced that it's not from here?
The first thing with hands-on experience was the antimatter reactor.
And explain what that is and how it works and what it does.
It's a plate, about 18 inches in diameter with a sphere on top.
I think we have some tape of it, a tape of a model that a friend of yours made. If we want to roll that, you can maybe narrate along. There it is.
Okay, inside that tower is a chip of element 115 they just put in there. That's a super heavy element. The lid goes on top, and as far as any other of the workings of it, I really don't know. You know, what's inside the bottom of it. The 115 sets up a gravitational field around the top. That little waveguide you saw being put on the top, that essentially siphons off the gravity wave, and that's later amplified in the lower portion of the craft. But just in general, the whole technology is virtually unknown.
Now, we saw the model, we saw the pictures of it there. It looks really, really simple, almost too simple to actually do anything.
Right.
Working parts?
None detectable. Essentially what the job was to back engineer everything, where you have a finished product and just to step backwards and find out how it was made or how it can be made with earthly materials. There hasn't been very much progress.
How long do you think they've had this technology up there?
It seems like quite a while, but I really don't know.
Now, what could you do with an antimatter generator? What does it do?
Well, it converts antimatter. It doesn't convert antimatter. There's an annihilation reaction. It's an extremely powerful reaction, 100% conversion of matter to energy, unlike a fission or fusion reaction, which is somewhere around 0.8% conversion of matter to energy.
I mean, how does it work? What starts the reaction going in that thing?
Really, once the 115 is put in, the reaction is initiated.
Just automatic?
Right.
I don't understand. I mean, there's no button to push or anything?
No, there's no button to push or anything. It apparently, the 115 under bombardment with protons lets out an antimatter particle. This antimatter particle will react with any matter whatsoever, which I imagine there is some target system inside the reactor. This in turn releases heat, and somewhere within that system there is a 100% efficient thermionic generator, essentially a heat to electrical generator in there.
Now, how is this antimatter reactor, how is this connected to a gravity generation that you talked about earlier?
Well, that reactor serves two purposes. It provides a tremendous amount of electrical power, and which is almost a byproduct. The gravitational wave is formed at the sphere, and that's through some action of the 115, which the exact action I don't think anyone really knows. The waveguide siphons off that gravity wave, and that's channeled above the top of the disk to the lower part where there are three gravity amplifiers which amplify and direct that gravity wave.
In essence, creating their own gravitational field.
Their own gravitational field.
You're fairly convinced that science on Earth doesn't have this technology right now. Well, we have it now, I guess, at
Right.
S4, but we didn't create it.
Right.
Why not? Why couldn't we?
The technology's not even, we don't even know what gravity is. I mean, there's just...
Well, what is it? What did you learn about what gravity is?
Well, gravity is a wave. There are many different theories about wave included. It's been theorized that gravity is also particles, gravitons, which is also incorrect. But gravity is a wave. The basic wave they can actually tap off of an element. Why that is, I'm not exactly sure.
And so you can produce your own gravity. What does that mean? What does that allow you to do?
Well, that allows you to do virtually anything. Gravity distorts time and space. By doing that, now you're into a different mode of travel, where instead of traveling in a linear method going from point A to B, now you can distort time and space to where you essentially bring the mountain to Mohammed. You almost bring your destination to you without moving. And since you're distorting time, all this takes place in between moments of time.